All right, we're here again with Steve and Julia of Jane Austen's period drama, one of the Oscar-nominated live-action shorts this year. Thank you guys both so much for taking the time to sit down and talk with me today. The film is wonderful. Congratulations. I would love to start by asking about all of the various ways you guys paid homage to Jane Austen and other authors like her throughout the film, because there's stuff in the cinematography and the costumes and the script and the music. It's really everywhere you look. And so I was curious about your process in terms of crafting that stuff and whether you found stuff just day of, how much prep went into that, and just your various methods for crafting that sort of thing.
We try to do it from every angle. I mean, if you're going to tackle a period piece, we really wanted to tackle it and we wanted to do the best we could. I mean, our background is in a sketch comedy and a lot of like janky, low budget sketch comedy. But with this, we really wanted to pool all the resources we had into paying the most homage to those Jane Austen films of the 90s and the early aughts, because we felt that the more we got that visual world right, the more the story would hit, the more the humor would hit, if people really believed that they were living in that world. So we came at it from, obviously there's costumes, there's production design, and then for everything from lens choice, like the first shot of our film, we were really adamant that we wanted that first shot to be a really long zoom lens shot where you find our main characters in the hills, because that you see that all the time in those films from the 90s. And we felt that that would really set the tone for
Yeah.
the rest of the film.
Yeah, and I think, from a script standpoint, of course, we spent a lot of time with the language and trying to find language that felt, one, like it was coming from Jane Austen's books or something like that, but then also had a balance of modernity and a balance of humor so that it was really accessible for everyone. Yeah, but really from the script on, I think we were thinking about how do we capture the essence of Jane Austen and of this style while giving it our own twist.
I do think when doing a period piece, there is even less of like finding things on the day.
Yeah.
You kind of have to really plan. The only thing I can think of was we're based in Los Angeles and we shot all the interiors in a home in Los Angeles, but for the exteriors, we needed the rolling green hills of England. And our cinematographer, Luca Del Pupo, lives in Connecticut, which has a lot of lush rolling green hills. And our plan, what we ended up having to do was taking some donated Sky Miles and flying like seven of us out there for the first scene of the film. But we didn't know exactly where we were going to shoot. We didn't have a specific location that we had scouted, so we were just going to show up and try to go find some green hills and ask permission or ask forgiveness, depending on what we
Sure.
needed to do. But luckily, when we got there, we had like rented an Airbnb for us and our crew, and it's just like right next door were the hills that you see in the film. And so when we got there, we're like, that looks pretty good to us. So we ended up getting very, very lucky by just like the Airbnb that we booked happened to be next to some rolling green hills that looked like England.
Just had to VFX out a couple light poles.
Yeah. But it wasn't much. It wasn't much.
Yeah, I love that. That's always how the best stuff finds you. Is just totally on accident. I love that. The character names. I would love to talk about the character names because first of all, I would love to know how you guys came up with all of them because they're hysterical. But the parts of the film that I found myself laughing the hardest was the timing in which they deliver them for the first time. Like when Vagiana in particular really got me. The first time she says, "Vagiana, go fetch a chicken," or her line there, it feels so precise in the edit and the timing. And so I was wondering how you guys went about the timing in just revealing character names, because it's one of my favorite sources of comedy from the film, and it feels very, very surgical.
Thank you for saying that. It was, well, the names themselves were initially the result of our very juvenile sense of humor. We were just like we're like so funny, Vagiana. But in writing those names, we actually found a deeper meaning that really connected with the message. Being that that, living in our characters are living in this world where there is a lot of sexual ignorance, and so that they can live in this world with these names and no one's aware that they're actually, a play on words, or they're actually anything weird about them. But the names were really the main thing that we thought about in terms of introducing the audience to our world of comedy, not just the world of Jane Austen, but our world of comedy. Like the first laugh in the whole film is a name. And that was very intentional on our part.
Because we didn't want the characters to have to be doing anything silly. We didn't want them to be sort of the source of comedy, because they're having a genuine, authentic interaction that's dramatic, But we needed a way to invite the audience to laugh, and so that was sort of what ended up being the thing. I'll also say, like, we've found that the names have to have this like really perfect balance where they really do sound like they could be a real name. If they're too silly, they also don't work. It has to be just right, and that's why Vagiana is so perfect, because it sounds like a real name, and when we're writing,
I mean, we rolled the line, to be clear, like really went right up to that.
But you really start to forget, what I mean? And I think that's when we know it's working, is when we're writing and we're like, we've forgotten that these names are silly.
Yeah.
The first time we saw, I mean, you talk about how we sort of placed them and revealed them. And I think some of that was really intentional. The last one was very intentional.
That was one of the biggest conversations we had in the writing, was like where to place Estrogenia, where to reveal Essie's full name.
Yeah.
And we disagreed about it for a while.
Yeah, that was definitely a big point of contention. But beyond that, I mean, I think we had gotten so used to the names that I think when we first saw the movie with a crowd, it was like, those names are funny, and they are kind of like, they do kind of come out in a good order.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm always really curious when I talk to filmmakers that work with animals about their process of working with animals. And I've never gotten the chance to ask somebody about working with a chicken, because the chicken gives a wonderful performance in the film. And I'm sure that a chicken is probably a bit more difficult to wrangle than a dog or even a cat in certain instances. And even the moment where the young girl is taking the chicken out of the room and he flaps and flies away, little moments like that. And I'm curious how much you guys had to adapt to with that chicken, and if things may have changed from what you would initially plan because the chicken was misbehaving or doing something different, or if you caught something organic based on how it was acting on set or anything.
Well, prepare to be shocked, Eric. The chicken was completely docile.
She really was, except for that take, which was moment. Not planned.
Yes.
That Nicole Elise Nelson, who plays Vagiana, just, I guess it was one of her first times working with Snow White, the chicken. Snow White is her name. And I think she just picked her up a little wrong. Not wrong. I mean, the chicken was fine. No chickens were harmed in the making of this film. but and then, Snow White like fluttered and really tried to get away. And Nicole got pretty freaked out by it. But that's the take we ended up keeping, because we're like, oh, that kind of really works.
Yeah, but beyond that, I mean, so we had a chicken wrangler. It was a real job called chicken wrangler. And he brought several ladies and offered, like he asked, do we want one of his chattier ladies? And we said no. We wanted a very, very docile lady. And so that's what we got. Snow White was like, you could just hold her, you could
very chill.
Pet her.
Yeah, we got very lucky.
Sweet. Yeah.
Sweet. Okay, well that's so nice to hear. And one thing I noticed with that cut of the chicken flapping its wings as Vagiana carries her out of the room leads me into my next question about your edit, because it's very, very sharp, and I'm wondering how much comedy. I know you talked about with a period piece, it kind of limits your ability to find things on the day, but in terms of the comedy, if there was anything that you did find on the day, or anything that you found in post as you're cutting things together that maybe you didn't exactly have written in the script or didn't realize you had when you were working with the actors or with Snow White.
Two moments come to mind,
Same. I bet they're the same two moments.
Well,
But you go ahead.
I hope so. There was a point in the edit where, so there's a part in the story where Essie is explaining where babies come from to Mr. Dickley. That was not in the script. The line was just, and that's where babies come from. They was supposed to just cut right to the end of whatever she was telling him. And when we were in the edit room, we had edited it together, and it felt, that was the only part that really kind of dragged or felt like it lost steam. And so this was a puzzle that we were trying to figure out for quite a while. And I think we were in our office at the time, and I think you guys had gone to lunch or something, and it was just me alone in there. And I was like, I think I remember improvising before all those takes as an actor, just getting, just you do this, you just kind of like try to lead into a scene if you're just going to cut into something that feels like it's at the end of something. And so I went back and looked at the footage, and I was like, oh, I did. I just kind of like made stuff up before like 5 takes where I was like, yeah, and then the head and the feet go, and the cervix is really large and it's great. And I was like, oh, I wonder if we could just jump cut, which felt like an editing device from it. I was worried it was too modern of an editing device.
Really anachronistic. Yeah.
Because we had been living in the beautiful world of hopefully like something that felt like a Jane Austen film from the 90s or the aughts. But then so I put that in, and I think you guys came back from lunch, and I was like, you guys, I think this might have fixed it. Did it fix it? And we liked it. It kind of re-energized the edit at that moment because it presented something new. So that was something we discovered in post.
Yeah, and it almost feels like, she's bringing him into a modern world, and so I think the editing suddenly starts to feel like we can go on that journey with her. And then of course like the credit song is also super modern, so it's like the movie almost carries us toward modernity, and that's a big part of that.
Yeah, that was one thing I thought of.
Yeah. The other thing is, of course, well, no, you wouldn't know, but there's a moment where Essie is describing what it feels like to have your period start or come out, and Mr. Dickley's like, well, does it just gush? And she's like, well, it doesn't exactly gush. And Julia, when she wrote that scene originally, she always had the same idea in her mind about what it was going to be.
This like sound that Essie would make to describe it.
And when we were on set, I don't know why, I just like sensed that we could get something else, and that it would be, I don't know. And so I sort of threw Julia off balance, and I was like, okay, let's try it again and just give me something totally different. And so she improvised that moment, and it's still probably my favorite moment in the whole thing. It's just delightful. But beyond that, it was a very tightly scripted production. And the actors really showed up and knew their stuff, and everyone just brought it to life as it was on the page.
I have one more question for you. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I really admired how well you were able to balance the satire on sort of, like you were saying, sexual ignorance and just societal expectations. But the analysis of it still feels very lighthearted, and nobody's going to leave the film being like brooding and upset about the current state of things. And so I would like to know how you guys went about choosing to balance that and make sure you gave across still a very serious message that deserves to be analyzed and deserves to be thought about, while still consistently making people laugh and having fun thinking about these things.
We played with a lot of rewrites. I mean, that balance was very, very important to us. We knew from the beginning, it was going to be a thing. And then the more we got into the writing process, we're like, oh, this is like the thing, is figuring out how to balance the heart and what we want to say and what we want to put out in the world in terms of our responsibility as artists. And we love to make people laugh, and we love to entertain, and entertainment was key. And those things are not mutually exclusive, and they can go hand in hand. So it was a crafting, it was a feeling thing for us. I think when it felt right, we both were like, that feels right. That feels like the story we want to tell. It feels like the balance we want to put out into the world. And luckily the responses have confirmed a lot of what we were hoping it would confirm.
I also think there's a real Satire is so tricky because I think especially when you're writing by yourself, there's a real impulse to write from a place of hurt or a place of fear. And both of those can result in kind of like a jabbing form of art,
Mm.
like where you're sort of like attacking a part of the audience or some people who may be watching, you're kind of criticizing. Um, I think one of the advantages of working together is we can catch those impulses in each other, and
Mm.
we can help balance them out. Because I think ultimately, like we don't want to hurt, like we don't want to make art that's hurtful. Like we want to make art
It's helpful.
that's helpful and that everyone can enjoy and everyone can be part of. Because that's also how we move the conversation forward.
I love that answer. Well, on that note, thank you guys so much for taking the time. Congratulations on the film. I can't wait to see more. And just thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Eric. This
Eric.
was
Thank you.
lovely.
Thank you. Great to meet you.